Coming up in our newscast tonight. A Washington Pyongyang meeting could have taken place during the U.S. Vice President's visit to South Korea in time for the start of the Winter Olympics. It was canceled last minute by the regime, supposedly angered by Pence's gestures and announcement of forthcoming sanctions. The home curling squad's Cinderella run continues. South Korean male speed skaters gear up with their eyes on the prize, while the ladies seek redemption in PyeongChang. As thousands of jobs are at stake with GM Korea planning to pull the plug on operations in Gunsan, the South Korean government and the automaker discuss other options. NEWSCENTER begins now. It's 8 p.m. here in Korea, coming to you live from our studio in Seoul. This is Arirang News Center. Welcome, I'm Daniel Choi. Let's start with what could have been a breakthrough event. Washington says Vice President Mike Pence was set to meet with North Korean officials during his recent visit here for the Winter Games. That was before the regime pulled out, seemingly upset by America's continued hardline stance. Kwon Jang-ho has our top story.
North Korea dangled a meeting in front of the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence before it was cancelled last minute after Pence refused to soften his tone on the regime. That's how the Vice President's Chief of Staff, Nick Ayers, described the meeting that could have been. Ayers, speaking to the Washington Post on Tuesday, revealed that the CIA had received word of North Korea's interest in holding a meeting during the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, and that preparations began following President Trump's approval and ahead of Pence's trip to Asia. The Vice President was given a remit to convey the sincerity of Washington's hardline stance, although not to open any negotiations. But only 2 hours before their scheduled meeting time on the 10th of February, the day after the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, the North Korean delegation called to cancel. They reportedly expressed dissatisfaction over Pence's announcement a few days prior that new sanctions were being planned on Pyongyang. The North Korean delegation also showed disapproval of a meeting between the Vice President and North Korean defectors, as well as Fred Warmbier, the father of the U.S. student who died last year, shortly after being released from 17 months of detention in the North. Throughout his trip in Asia, Pence repeatedly said he would fight against the North's attempts to, quote, hijack the Olympics with its propaganda. The State Department spokesperson confirmed the report, saying that although the administration regrets the North's failure to seize this opportunity, Washington will not apologize for calling attention to the regime's human rights abuses. The Vice President's office also said Seoul tried to assist by providing the Blue House as a neutral location for the meeting, but the South Korean top office has declined to confirm. It had been hoped that North Korea's involvement in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics would open the road for dialogue with the US as well as with South Korea. But the revelation of this failed meeting shows that there is still a long way to go before all sides are ready to sit down at the negotiation table. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, North Korean watchers detected steady progress on construction of a light water reactor in the communist state's key nuclear facility. According to our Kim Young-gil, Seoul's government is closely monitoring the regime's activities at the research center in Yongbyon.
South Korea's Unification Ministry said Wednesday that it was aware of the latest report by US-based North Korea analysis website 38 North that North Korea's experimental light water reactor appears to be nearing completion.
It's not appropriate to mention information on North Korea's nuclear program in detail for now, but we are closely monitoring the situation of North Korea's light water reactor at Yongbyon with the related ministries.
38 North on Monday cited satellite imagery of the North Yongbyon nuclear facility showing steady progress on the construction of a light water reactor. Construction began in 2010, and the report said the reactor appeared to be externally complete and that a plutonium production reactor at the site may have been in operation recently. Meanwhile, Seoul's Unification Ministry said the government was also reviewing plans to resume the stalled project aimed at rebuilding a disconnected railway line that once ran across the heavily armed inter-Korean border up to the northeastern port city of Wonsan in North Korea.
We are cooperating with related ministries for the early resumption of construction work to rebuild the Gyeongwon Railway line.
This project was initiated in August 2015 and was originally scheduled for completion in December last year. But the construction was suspended in May 2016 due to cross-border tensions and delays in the purchase of land. Seoul's government sees the nearly $150 million restoration project as being important for the unification and joint prosperity of South and North Korea. President Moon Jae-in has promised to connect the two Koreas by rail across the demilitarized zone which divides the peninsula. PyeongChang, Arirang News.
Early January, the two Koreas agreed to hold military talks to ensure safety on the peninsula, especially for the Winter Olympics. But even as the games draw to a close, such meetings never took place. Oh Jung-hee examines the possible reasons behind the silence.
Easing cross-border tensions and fostering peace on the Korean peninsula through military talks. That's what the two Koreas agreed to do at their historic high-level talks held in early January. But still, after a month and a half, South and North Korea military authorities have made no concrete plans to meet face-to-face.
The Inter-Korean military hotline is working fine, but nothing's been decided when it comes to military talks.
Seoul's Defense Minister Song Young-moo said Tuesday that South Korean authorities are devising specific plans for what to discuss at the military talks should they happen and on what level they should be held. He added that the talks will have to start from things that both Seoul and Pyongyang can readily address. If held, it's expected the talks would begin at the working level. According to the experts, however, both Seoul and Pyongyang are aware that military talks could actually bring some unwanted results. For the time being, both Koreas want to continue the relative peace that's broken out on the peninsula, though ultimately their goals may be different.
If Seoul and Pyongyang hold military talks, then the North would bring up the South Korea-U.S. joint military drills, which would prompt Seoul to call for Pyongyang's denuclearization. The only topics they have for discussion are ones where they'll butt heads.
Seoul says it's waiting for Pyongyang's reply to its initial military talks proposal made last year. But with no reply coming from Pyongyang, it remains to be seen how the two Koreas will move towards their first military talks in 3 years, as well as how they'll manage tensions on the peninsula, especially with Seoul-Washington joint military drills taking place in April. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
We are into day 12 of the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Hi, I'm Kim Hae-sung with the latest on the games. Let's kick things off with the highlights. The South Korea women's curling team is competing against Denmark as we speak, the last preliminary match for the South Korean curlers. The home team already beat the Olympic athletes from Russia by 11-2 earlier today after the latter called it quits in the sixth end. South Korea has claimed 7 wins so far, and it will play next in the semifinals Friday evening. In the women's single skating short program this morning, South Korea's Choi Da-bin scored 67.77 points, pulling off a personal best to rank 8th. 15-year-old Kim Han-il came in 21st place, and both of them will be going for the free skating program Friday. Russia's Alina Zakitova came in first with a world record of 82.92 points. In the alpine skiing women's downhill, Italy's Sofia Guzia claimed gold, beating the United States' Lindsey Vonn, who had to settle for bronze. The 25-year-old Italian skater clocked in at 1 minute 39.22 seconds, coming 900th of a second ahead of Norway's Ragnhild Movindal, who claimed silver. Last night, South Korea clinched its 4th gold in the women's 3,000-meter short track speed skating relay, defending the medal it won at Sochi 2014. The 4-member team clocked in at 4 minutes 7.361 seconds, beating Italy and the Netherlands, who won silver and bronze. The gold medal finish also gave 19-year-old Choi Min-jung her 2nd gold of this year's Winter Olympics. And now let's take a look at the medal tally. As of 8 p.m., Norway is on top with 11 gold, 11 silver, and 9 bronze. Trailing behind is Germany with a total of 23 medals. Sweden is 7th, and South Korea is in the 9th place with 4 gold, 2 silver, and 2 bronze. And there are still more exciting events lined up. The semi-finals for the men's team pursuit in speed skating will take place soon. South Korea will be racing against New Zealand. If Team Korea makes it to the final, it could be in the gold medal hunt shortly after 10:15. In the women's competition, South Korea will compete in the D final, racing Poland in less than an hour from now. Now on Thursday, there's the men's ski halfpipe final run and the match that will determine whether Canada or the U.S. will take the gold in women's ice hockey is slated for 1:10 p.m. And still to come, excitement will flood the ice arena at Gangneung as short track speed skating events take place on Thursday evening. That's all I have for now. Stay tuned to Arirang News for the latest updates on the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, and I'll leave you with today's results.
All right, thank you for those updates, Haesung. We appreciate it. Staying with the Winter Olympics, the formation of a unified Korean women's ice hockey team was arguably the biggest story of this year's event. Regardless of their record, by embarking on the Olympic journey together as one, they made history. Our Cha Sang-mi was at the press conference to hear about the experience directly from the athletes.
The possibility of the two Koreas fielding a joint women's hockey team was first raised by Olympic officials last June. But the decision to actually do it didn't come until less than 3 weeks before the start of the PyeongChang Winter Games. The team's 27-day journey has come to a winless end. But looking back at their awkward ice-breaking moments to Wednesday's team lunch of barbecue, the 5 games they played together were a symbolic triumph. In the words of head coach Sarah Murray, the 23 South Koreans and 12 North Koreans played together as a family. At a press conference at Team Korea House, Murray described the experience as remarkable, seeing the players from the two Koreas hug, laugh, and even cry together.
As for our players, I can't say enough how proud we are of what they have done and how truly remarkable they are. This whole situation wouldn't have worked if it weren't for our players and their character.
As a player, I was a bit disconcerted in the very beginning when they said they were forming a joint team. But practicing together, I didn't feel that some of us are from the north and others from the south.
Looking back at the dramatic improvement of the South Korean team over the past 4 years, Murray revealed her ambitions to take the team further.
We're going to win at the Worlds, then we're going to be one step closer to competing in Beijing at the Olympics.
As for the future of the combined team, Murray said it was still unclear, but she hopes to continue the relationship for the development of hockey in both countries. On Tuesday, the team lost 6-1 to Sweden, one of the best teams in the world. But some remarkable moments linger, such as the team's historic first goal scored by Randy Hisu Griffin, an adoptee who acquired citizenship in South Korea, her birth country, just last year. Cha Sang-mi, Arirang News.
While displaying dominance in events like short track, events outside the rink have not been the nation's forte. Helping to break out that mold is Yoon Sung-bin, who had a golden finish in skeleton. Each one gets us better acquainted with the underdog that stole the spotlight.
Last Friday's first ever Asian gold medal in skeleton, in fact the first in any of the Olympic toboggan track events, amazed people both within and outside of Korea. And though a week has passed, it all still seemed surreal to the gold medalist Yoon Sung-bin of Team Korea as he spoke to the press at PyeongChang's main press center on Wednesday. Yoon said that he is happy to have achieved what he and his team had dearly hoped for, and that he has been cheering for other athletes for the past few days.
I wasn't really able to have time on my own, but when I had some time to myself, I mostly slept. Our bobsleigh team haven't finished their games yet, so whenever they had a game, I would go and cheer for them.
When asked whether he was certain of winning the gold medal, Yoon said that no one can be certain, but that he had thoroughly prepared for it and that he was confident in his runs. He added that his first gold medal in skeleton was possible due to everyone who has supported him.
All this was possible because my team ran together with me for the same goal. Individual athletes' efforts are important, but the efforts of those supporting the athlete are also crucial. And my team and I prepared and fought in the games with one will and one mind.
When asked what his next goal is, now that he stands as world's #1 in the discipline, Yoon said that his next challenge is to win gold at the World Championship, already showing excitement for next year's event in Canada. Yoon added that he is glad to have been a part of promoting the winter sports within Korea and to have promoted Korea to the world. And with the 23rd Winter Games held in Korea, he, like all the other Korean athletes, is happy and lucky to have been able to perform in front of the people of his own country. 이지원, 아리랑 뉴스, 평창.
At the National Assembly, the Presidential Chief of Staff attended the Parliamentary Steering Committee meeting. During the session, Im Jong-seok urged lawmakers to swiftly draw up a constitutional revision proposal. Hwang Ho-jun shares with us his remarks.
A promise to the public made by both ruling and opposition parties. That's what Presidential Chief of Staff Im Jong-seok called it, urging the National Assembly to promptly draw up a proposal for constitutional revision. He said it needs to be done soon, so a referendum on the amendment can be held at the same time as the local elections in June. He emphasized that the presidential office is committed to getting the Constitution revised, but he noted that the Blue House is yet to draw up its own proposal, something it had said it will do if Parliament continues to stall. For now, he said, it's up to the National Assembly, and the presidential office will only start working on it if it becomes absolutely necessary. And that will be determined by the speed and quality of the proposal from lawmakers. Im was speaking in a briefing of the National Assembly's House Steering Committee. He was asked by lawmakers whether Seoul will send a special envoy to Pyongyang in return for the visit by Kim Yo-jong, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's younger sister, who came to the South earlier this month for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. Im said the Blue House will consider any means that would help continue the momentum of dialogue and peace on the Korean peninsula. He also said that South Korea is in direct talks with the U.S. about North Korea issues and that ties with Washington are stronger than ever, dismissing claims from the opposition that disagreements between the allies over North Korea have resulted in Washington taking harsh trade actions against Seoul. He also confirmed that South Korea is prepared to give the warmest welcome to U.S. President Donald Trump's daughter and advisor, Ivanka, who will be coming to attend the closing ceremony of the Winter Olympics. Hwang Ho-jun, Arirang News.
General Motors shutting down their assembly plant in Kunsan would adversely impact the lives of thousands in the region, which is why the Korean government and the head of GM's international operations met to discuss restructuring options. Lee Jung-yeon gets us up to speed with the developments.
Just last Tuesday, GM Korea announced its plans to shut down its assembly plant in Kunsan, Jeollabuk-do province before the end of May. This sparked a heated discussion, with voices opposing the idea, saying that it could potentially affect tens of thousands of people, especially in the Kunsan area. Barry Engel, Executive Vice President and President of GM International, is now in South Korea, meeting with South Korean officials to discuss restructuring methods to revive GM Korea. The Detroit-based carmaker proposed investing $2.8 billion over the next decade into its South Korea operations and asked the government to inject funds for investment through the state-run Korea Development Bank, which in turn would invest around $476 million. South Korea's Trade Minister Bae Kun-gyu said on Wednesday that the government has asked for an audit into the automaker's, quote, opaque management, and that a detailed business plan must be devised before any confirmation, as such a large amount of taxpayers' money cannot be spent under vague terms.
The key point is not the amount of money. The key point is competitiveness of GM Korea. The government has to get the confirmation from GM Korea or GM how to make GM Korea plants in Korea could be competitiveness.
GM's proposal is on top of the already proposed $2.2 billion debt for equity swap to get financial support and tax benefits from Seoul. They've also proposed launching 2 new models produced in Korea and maintaining production of 500,000 units annually. However, experts say this won't be easy.
Understanding the number of units, that GM Korea has been selling either domestic or global market, because 80% of the products in GM Korea is to be exported. So, just looking at the trends of GM Korea's auto sales, sustaining 500,000 units of production in local markets, it's going to be very difficult.
The expert adds that further restructuring could be possible in the remaining 3 plants in South Korea for the car maker to maintain such production. An agreement between the government and the automaker is expected to be made within the next month. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea inked free trade agreements with 5 Central American nations to expand its business reach into the region. The move is expected to not only benefit the local economy, but help pave a new trade route. Park Ji-won explains further.
South Korea is expanding its trade relations with the Central American market. Korea's Trade Ministry officially signed a free trade agreement with 5 Central American countries on Wednesday to reduce tariffs and eliminate barriers to increase business partnerships. Trade Minister Kim Hyun-jong said the trade pact with Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama will help create a comprehensive strategic partnership with the Central American nations. The signing of the deal comes after nearly 3 years of negotiations, which began in 2015. The negotiations touched upon goods, services, and investment, non-tariff barriers, trade remedies, and a dispute settlement system. The ministry said once the deal is implemented, duties on over 95% of goods will be scrapped, either immediately or in phases, boosting exports to Central America. Korea's state-run Institute for International Economic Policy said Korea's real GDP growth will see an additional 0.02% growth over the next 10 years, with consumer benefits worth nearly $700 million. Over 2,500 new jobs will be created by the FDA, and Korea's automobile and steel industries in particular are likely to benefit from the trade deal. Minister Kim underscored that South Korea is the first Asian country to strike such a deal with the countries in Central America, paving the way for Korean firms to expand their presence in the region ahead of their Chinese and Japanese rivals. There's also speculation that pact could serve as a third route into the North American market amid the United States' growing trade protection moves. The FDA will likely go into effect in the first half of this year after the National Assembly approves it. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In January, the nation's producer prices hit levels not seen in 3 years, with vegetable prices marking the biggest increases. Unfortunately, for the foreseeable future, this upward trend seems set to continue. Park Hee-jun helps us look beyond the numbers.
Korea's producer prices have reached their highest level in over 3 years. According to the Bank of Korea, January's producer price index stood at 103.5, up 0.4% compared to the previous month and 1.2% on year. The index is at its highest since November 2014 and has increased at its fastest pace in 4 months. The producer price increases have largely been attributed to the recent freezing temperatures and heavy snowfall, which led to a drastic rise in vegetable prices. Agricultural product prices climbed 8.7%, the largest jump since August last year, when they spiked 14.2%. Bell pepper prices rose 151%, green chilies 89%, and cucumbers 41% compared to December last year.
The spike in prices is making customers think twice before putting vegetables into their shopping carts. Here at one of the largest supermarkets in Seoul, price tags are constantly being changed to reflect the rising prices.
I can see that prices for various products have risen, but it's much more evident in vegetable prices.
Common people like us can definitely feel the prices rising. But if you think about the farmers who suffer more from the cold weather, it's something that we have to endure.
The Producer Price Index is considered a barometer of inflation as it shows the wholesale price of goods and services, which is an indicator of future consumer price rises. It is expected that the continued increase in prices, especially of vegetables, is unlikely to end in the near future. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Time for some weather updates with our Michelle Bug. Michelle, what's the latest?
Well, Daniel, cold wind forced many people to bundle up the moment they stepped outside today. However, starting tomorrow afternoon, we can look forward to more comfortable conditions. Keep in mind that the mercury is still expected to drop significantly at night for the time being. And also tomorrow night, most of the country will receive snow starting from the central region. Tomorrow, Seoul will begin the day at -3 degrees Celsius, Daegu at -5, Busan at -1 degrees. Into the afternoon, Seoul rises up to 6 degrees, with Gwangju and Busan hitting 8 and 9 degrees respectively. Tomorrow evening, snow should clear by Friday morning, and mild daily highs are expected to stay with us for now. And over in PyeongChang, Olympic events will take place under improving conditions. I'll leave you with the weather conditions around the world.
That's it for tonight's edition of News Center. As always, thank you for watching.